Okay, people, we have a very, very special guest today. The Yankees New York Post writer and a dear friend of mine, Greg Joyce. Greg, how you doing, brother?
Good, Jimmy. How you doing?
I'm doing good. So I think the first way to start this, I would be remiss not to mention right off the bat that our moms were childhood friends. So it's great to see your success from afar. And I haven't seen you since you were probably like 10 years old. So it's been a while. My first question for you actually is I'm pretty sure that you had a dog named Teddy for Teddy Williams, right? So are you a Yankees fan or a Red Sox fan?
Oh, well, so I grew up outside of Boston. So yeah, we had a dog named Ted Williams or Teddy, for Teddy ball game, Ted Williams. But obviously since, so I grew up, in Red Sox territory, but obviously once you get into the journalism profession, you kind of ditch the fanhood, aspect of it. So, haven't really rooted for a team in a while, but, certainly grew up, the rest of my family, they're all Red Sox fans, but, kind of have to ditch that part of it when you take the job. So
Yeah, that's fair. So what's it like? So everybody else is okay. Let's just say Yankees are playing the Red Sox. You don't even care who wins. Your job is just to do okay. All right.
going for a quick game, good story, good storyline. That's all. That's my rooting interest these days. So
Wow. Okay.
obviously, yeah, yeah.
No,
So
I get it. I get it. I do some work at Yes Network now, and yeah, the quicker the ball game, the better. So the pitch clock has obviously been amazing. So yeah, I just had to ask that. You
all good. We had
started writing.
207 yesterday. That was a good one.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. That's really nice, actually. Uh, so you went to school at Boston College. That's obviously where you probably, got into your craft. And is that really where you started figuring out that you wanted to do this long term?
Yeah, so I wrote for the student newspaper there, the Heights. So I was covering everything from football, basketball, hockey. Hockey was a big sport there. They won a national championship when I was there. The men's team did, and the women's team went to the Frozen Four. Got to travel to that, and so that was always cool. I covered some baseball there too. The baseball coach there, Mike Gambino, was awesome to work with, especially getting the student journalists involved in covering the program and everything. So so I wrote for the Heights for three and a half years, I think, in college, and then was sports editor for a little bit. And I always kind of knew, heading into college that that's what I wanted to do, thought I wanted to do, thought about sports broadcasting for a little bit, and then spent one summer in the Cape, and working in the Cape Cod Baseball League as a writer for one of the teams, and then spent one game that one of the broadcasters was down, and so I tried out sports play-by-play for a night, and I was terrible at it. So I was like, maybe I'll stick to the writing part. But yeah, so I always kind of knew that that's what I wanted to do, and getting to do it in college only kind of confirmed that.
Yeah, no, I mean you're an amazing writer. I was just reading
Thanks.
your last three articles. The one on Cole and injuries that we'll definitely get into. But what was it like getting the call that you're becoming the New York Yankees post writer? What's that like?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, right? I mean, you never really expect it. I was fortunate enough so I've been at the Post since 2017. Was doing a little bit of everything when I first got here, all the different teams, all sports as a general assignment guy. And then the last few years kind of took on more baseball, bouncing between the Yankees and Mets, whoever was playing at home on a given week. But yeah, it's certainly an honor. Just, I know who, the list of writers who have been in this spot before me. So, it's not something I take lightly, just kind of taking that job and hopefully, being able to do it well.
Yeah, no, you're doing great. It's kind of crazy because like you're essentially the first person that obviously outside the clubhouse that really knows what the lineup is going to be that day. It's pretty crazy. So yesterday or 2 days ago, like the lineup comes out, Greg Joyce is the first person to report on it. That must be nuts. Like to really like take that in for a second, because it is pretty insane that you're the first person to know who's going to be playing for the Yankees that day.
Yeah, and I mean, just seeing the lineup every day, you're trying to figure out like, okay, you scan through it and trying to figure out, like, is anybody not in this lineup? Who's on the bench? Like, is this guy just having a day off, or is there something more there? So, you see the lineup, and then you scan through it, and then obviously your first question is like, all right, like what's the next question, or what do we need to figure out, like based on who's in or who's out on a given day. Sometimes it's nothing at all, just a guy getting a day, and sometimes like staying be out of the lineup on Sunday that turns into something a little bit bigger. So you never really know what you're going into on a given day when you get into the clubhouse.
Yeah, you have your work cut out for you with injuries and off days in April, 10 games in, and I'm not going to make you speak on that. I'll let myself, the fans, speak more about that, because it's absolutely crazy some days. Like DJ got 3 days off. And then, I mean, Giancarlo decelerates to second base. I didn't even know that's a thing. You get hurt jogging to second base. So, yeah, you really have your work cut out for you there with all the questions, because I'm pounding my head sometimes, like thinking, like, why isn't this guy in the lineup? And then it's just crazy. Like, personally, for me, from an outsider perspective, when I see that Giancarlo is getting like an off day, and this doesn't really apply anymore now that he's injured, he's basically glass, but he's out Wednesday and Thursday, then he plays one day in right field, and then he's getting an off day the next day. I'm Giancarlo Stanton, I'm telling Boone, hey, Boone, give me the bat. Let me at least DH. But now we know, I mean, this guy really, it's tough. The injury plague has cost him a lot. But yeah, I don't know. It's pretty interesting, because you really do have your work cut out for you from that perspective, I guess.
Yeah, and it's tough, like, especially in April, when they're still trying to kind of build these guys up. Obviously, this was the first normal spring training that they've had in a few years in terms of being able to get guys ramped up how they want to with a normal 6-week spring training. But still, like, especially guys who might have had injuries last year, like DJ, they're still going to treat him a little bit more cautiously early in the season, I think, just to be able to make sure that he's here for the long haul. And so, I know it's, on a given day, the game seems like, they'll rest a guy on game 9, game 12, whatever it is, to make sure that they have him for, when the games really start counting. And I think they're taking that long view when it's maybe tough to do it sometimes.
Yeah, no, I totally understand it. And I've kind of taken the approach that, like, Greg Popovich basically started back in 2012 with the San Antonio Spurs. They were just getting off days to get off days. Now 7 teams make the playoffs in each in the AL and the NL. So I do kind of understand it, but it's just frustrating when you're seeing Willie Calhoun bat 5th, and you're kind of just like, you just get confused because it's 10 days in. But I understand the long approach. I would have more questions for Aaron Boone than anybody. I would get kicked out in like 4 to 5 minutes, because, I mean, kind of the same way that Michael Kay was every single week last year. He was the one getting the manager report, and now it's John Boy, because I think he went a little bit too hard last year. I mean, personally, that's what I think happened. You don't have to speak on it, but yeah, I don't know. I think that we have to play a little bit more. I think that you kind of have to work through it. I don't know. Maybe I'm dead wrong, but
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an inexact science, right? Like, you never know. Like, they were trying to give Giancarlo days off to kind of make sure they built him out the right way, and something still happens. Some of the stuff is freak injury stuff when and some of it, that you try to take the best care of a guy that you can, and something still happens, or maybe it doesn't. So it's like, yeah, I understand the fan perspective of it. I think they're trying to figure out, but like you said, there's no exact method of being, making sure a guy is able to stay on for.
I mean, and then I sound like a boomer. I sound like a boomer when I'm like, oh, Cal Ripken played 2,100 games in a row, and they're like, well, people don't do that anymore. It's like, all right, but can they play 10 in a row? So I feel like sometimes they overcomplicate it. And then some of the lineup construction I have issues with all the time, but I don't know. I don't even know. Maybe you can enlighten me on this. Like, is Aaron Boone the one constructing the lineup every day? Is he definitely the one that's making that decision?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think, the way it's been, they described it, that there's input from a lot of different departments in terms of like suggestion on getting some guys days off, depending on the matchup. But Boone's the one that that ultimately writes out the lineup card. So I think there's a lot of voices that kind of go into that and have thoughts and opinions on it, but he is the guy that writes out the card every day.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know, because I just feel like I don't know. Sometimes I feel like, and he's really, really good with the media. Like, he's excellent with the media. There's no doubt about that. I think some of the decisions he's made really quite, like, the Yankee fans' perspective gets called into question a lot because he hasn't won, and obviously the standards are 10x any other ball club. Like, World Series are bust every single year, so you start to feel that frustration build up. But let's get away from the negativity. What's the most interesting story you've covered so far with the Yankees?
So like this year or just over the past few years?
Over the past few years, any way you want to take it.
So I'd say just the whole Judge chase for 62 last season was pretty crazy. So last year I was a backup guy. So, once Judge got to 60, I think it was basically every at bat, I was making a trek out to left field to try to find the guy or woman who caught 61, 62. So that was a lot of trips out to left field, which is easier in some ballparks than others. Obviously, he hit 61 in Toronto. I was there for that, but he hit that into the bullpen, right? So I went down to the ground floor and saw Yankee security kind of getting the ball, and Zach Britton had to come over and get it from the bullpen catcher. I think the Blue Jays bullpen catcher caught it, maybe, but the Yankees got that one back. And then I was in Texas that night that he hit 62. So there was that guy that he was in the front row and he jumped down. And at first, like, a security guard told me that was the guy who caught it. So I went down to the ground floor, saw that guy. He was getting taken away by security, and it was like, no, it wasn't him. And then by the time I get back upstairs to the first level, the guy who did catch it was, like, in some secure room, but then trying to talk to people around there. And then obviously post game, everything that happens with Judge and his family there and all the teammates' reaction. And so I think that was just kind of crazy, just being, kind of getting to witness history there a little bit, and lots of trips out to left field to try to find, all these, like, it was crazy every at bat, right? Like, I know you saw it every, it's like a standstill. People all have their phones up, and it's silent in the stadium, and then he hits a double, and it's like people are kind of disappointed by that. So that whole few weeks, whatever that was, once you could tell he was going to make a real run at 62, I think was pretty interesting to cover that.
Yeah, that's actually a bad question by me. I should have disallowed that question.
True. That's an easy one to fall back on.
That's a pretty bad question by me. All right. So the Yankees right now are just injury plagued, injury prone. And you're the guy that's basically with the clubhouse in there. There's two guys that I really wanted to know about. First is Carlos Rodon. What's, like, the latest news on him?
Yeah, so he's supposed to throw a split session today on Monday. The first would be the first simulated inning would be him throwing the bullpen, so like 15, 20 pitches maybe. And if that went well, I think he was going to do another simulated inning, this time facing hitters. So it seems like they're being, a little bit more again, kind of taking the long view with him, just kind of treating him to ramp up cautiously. He only got one start in spring training, right? So he basically has to go through. He's been throwing again for a while now, but he basically has to go through a whole spring training because he kind of missed all that, the ramp up in terms of getting his pitch count up and all that. So obviously he's a guy that, before the last two seasons had a lot of injuries. So I think they're kind of treating him cautiously. He was able to stay healthy for the most part the last 2 years. And that's why, that's when he showed he was one of the better pitchers in the game and got the big contract. So it seems like at this point, maybe mid-May, might be early mid-May. It's kind of tough to grasp until he starts a rehab assignment, really, but he's probably going to need at least a handful of starts on a rehab assignment to kind of get that pitch count up to a point where the Yankees can take him, because it's tough to bring him on when he's only throwing 40, 50, 60 pitches, and then he's given, so what's that, 3, 4, 5 innings, and then you have to get your bullpen to do the rest. So they kind of need him to get built up to a good amount before they're able to take him. So I think at this point, early to mid-May seems like a reasonable target for him to come back and make his debut.
Yeah, it makes sense. I have him on my fantasy team, Team Johnny Bananas. So I had to get the update on him. And then Luis Severino, I mean, this guy, I love him to death. I think he has phenomenal stuff. I was clamoring for this guy to be in the bullpen 2 years ago. I think that they could have gotten the most out of him. Obviously, right now that's not going to happen. Have you even seen Luis Severino recently?
Yeah, so he did throw a bullpen yesterday on Sunday at the stadium, and that was like a two. I think that was like a two bullpen, so like two simulated innings in the bullpen basically. So he'll, as long as he continues to feel good, like I think his next step is facing hitters, and then he shouldn't need, once he does that, his progression back on a rehab assignment should be quicker than Rodon's, right? Because he pretty much had a normal spring training up until his very last start, basically is when he started feeling a lot. So he shouldn't need as long of a rehab assignment once he gets to that step, but he's definitely getting closer. Again, like it's April 17th now, so maybe early May seems like a decent bet for him to come back.
So that means that I'm going to have to see Clark Schmidt a couple more times.
Right. So so the next few weeks are interesting, right? Because it's like Johnny Brito is still there, Domingo Germán and Clark Schmidt. Going into the season, it seemed like Schmidt and Germán were battling out that fifth spot, and then a couple injuries down, and all of a sudden they're locked in, and then Johnny Brito's the fifth starter. So it's like Johnny Brito had two really good starts, to his MLB debut, and then had a tough one last time out. So yeah, I mean, I think how those guys pitch over the next few weeks until Severino and Rodon are ready to come back, we'll see how that all shakes out.
Yeah, I'm just not a fan of Clark Schmidt. I mean, I don't think they put him in the best position to succeed. But then again, I'm huge on walk efficiency, and he's in the 20th percentile of K to balls to strikes ratio. So like that really frustrates me more than anything. If you're throwing strikes and the ball's getting hit out of the place, I can live with that. But I don't know. I personally don't trust him, and I think that's a fair assessment at this point. Rito, I loved. Obviously, he couldn't get out of the first inning last time. And then Germán, I feel like is a great fifth guy. I really do. Personally, I mean, I think he looked amazing. He looked amazing last start. I don't know if he was cheating or not, whatever happened there. And what is it actually like when something like that goes down? Like, that has to be the first question you're going to, or do you sometimes like to give the easy question to the manager and let like the hard questions come from somebody else, like Meredith or something like that?
Yeah, so I was not there on Saturday, but I think that I would assume that was one of the first questions in terms of, obviously he went on to throw a few more innings after that. So I think if he had gotten tossed from that, it obviously would have been the very first question. But I'm sure it was one of the first questions. And I get it from the Twins' perspective too, right? Like I think if the roles were reversed, you might have seen Aaron Boone out there arguing and getting tossed in terms of if a pitcher on the other team had gotten warned about a substance or not cleaning off his hands enough or whatever, even if it is the rosin that they talked about. So I think there's a lot of gray area in that in terms of like giving pitchers grace, when it is the rosin, if there's a little bit too much. So I think it's a tricky situation in terms of like finding a definite answer on that.
Yeah, I just like would try to put myself in your shoes, and then I feel like I would overdo it somehow. I've been trying to like really reel it back, positive vibes. We got the Ted Lasso believe stuff. I'm trying to be positive now.
I like it.
It's been a maturity process. Like 5 years ago, I was screaming at the top of my lungs and would dissect every single thing. But I think that you get more of a following and more of a positive vibes thing when you try to stay positive about things. And yesterday, when you see the lineup and you see Willie Calhoun in there, and you're just like really questioning, or like 2 or 3 nights ago when it's ninth inning, there's 2 outs, and Willie Calhoun's getting the at bat before DJ LeMahieu, and I'm like really about to pull my hair out, and I'm frustrated in the present time because I'm like, DJ LeMahieu has 200 more career home runs than Willie Calhoun. What are we doing? But I that's where I get the frustration with Boone, because I'm like, if it's the playoffs, we're going to DJ, right? So that's really where it starts to frustrate me. But then I have to remember, it's April. There's
Yeah,
162 of these. I'm going to burn myself out by July if I'm worried about game number 7.
sure. I don't think you're the only one either. Obviously, in New York, it's like a pressure cooker, right? It's like the early sample size for guys who either get off to a hot start or a cold start, but it's like that's all we have to look at this point, right? In terms of like results. So it's always nice once it's like May or June, because then you get like a solid sample size for guys in terms of like, I know a lot of people think like Memorial Day is when you can really start to like dig into numbers one way or another, because at that point guys have a good amount of at bats under their belts. And but yeah, I mean it's kind of natural the first week of the season, first couple of weeks to kind of like, I know I had like one of my colleagues, Joel Sherman, I think like refers to it as like 162 1 game seasons, right? Because it's like, the fans kind of live and die with each 1 game. So, but yeah, it's kind of the nature of the beast early in the season, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm just like, okay, just be calm. Like when they lost like 9-0, when they were down 9-0 in the first inning, I was cool as a cucumber. I saw, I'm patting myself on the back a little bit. I'm growing up a little bit, but yeah, it's tough. It's tough to really take that long process and really get inside the mind of Aaron Boone and how the organization runs. And, it also is a little bit more pressure filled when you're looking at the Tampa Bay Rays, who start 13-0, and you're like 9-4 and you're 4.5 games back just before the game starts. You're like, how is this even mathematically possible? So, but
Right.
yeah, it's early and
Right. Yeah, and I think like going into the season, right? Like if I told you were down Severino, Rodon, and Montas and Bader, and I think most people would have taken a 9-4 start, right? Or are they not 10-6? But yeah, obviously when you see the race starting like that, it puts some pressure on early. But it is a long haul, so we'll see where it goes.
yeah, absolutely. All right. We do a thing called fill in the blank. This is so I'm just going to ask you a few questions and just get your answer. Blank is the biggest glue guy in the Yankees clubhouse.
Good question. I think Anthony Rizzo is a big guy in that aspect. He's a guy that's won it, with the Cubs, a veteran. I know him and Judge are really close, so I think he's a guy that is a veteran, has seen a lot of stuff, doesn't get too high or too low, on a given day. It seems like he's one of the guys that kind of helps kind of bring guys together in the clubhouse.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, he's unbelievable. I mean, he basically got Aaron Judge back here. The story goes. I don't know. But yeah, he's pretty amazing. Who's the easiest going in the clubhouse?
Man, it's hard to top Oswaldo Cabrera, right? That guy, no matter what if he's going well or not on the field, you've seen him in the clubhouse, he's pretty much always smiling, happy to be there. Which isn't a substitute for, he's a competitor when he gets out on there on the field, but he's always easygoing guy in the clubhouse. I think always happy to see you. So I think he must be the easy pick for that one.
Yeah. I've been trying to do some like home run calls. I might get into like the broadcasting at some point down the line because, I mean, obviously, Kay's still there and there's just a bunch of people, but I think the home run call for Oswaldo is follow the yellow brick road. We're off to see the wizard. Then my girlfriend yelled at me because she said Ozzie Smith was the Wizard of Oz. So I don't know. I'm still trying to figure things out with him, but I absolutely love him. When the Yankees come back, I mean, when the entire team's healthy and that guy slotted 8th in the lineup, like that is a blessing to have. And so I mean, this fill in the blank has turned into something else. But yeah, I mean, really, at the end of the day, he looks amazing and he can play all 8 different positions or 7 different positions. He could probably play catcher if he needed to. He'd
be up for it. Yeah, super valuable guy to have, right? Especially a switch hitter, like you said, can play a bunch of different positions. And I think he always says his favorite position is the one that the Yankees need him to play on a given day. So you love to have a guy like that on your roster who you can kind of mix and match wherever, on a given day where you need him.
Yeah, absolutely. And for all of Boone's quote unquote faults, I have to say, Anthony Volpe, who I'm obsessed with, when he sits and Oswaldo gets to start at shortstop, I'm just clapping. I'm giving a little golf clap to there because that's the thing that I want to see. I don't want to see IK at the shortstop anymore. I'm proud of him for going to Boone and saying, hey, I'm going to play a little outfield, a little third base whatever you need. I'm clearly not a shortstop, but when Boone does that, you have to tip your cap a little bit to him because I mean that's really the things that I want to see is like that little. The most frustrating thing the past 3 years with the Yankees is that they didn't have a guy that could field the position at like that's above average. And with Anthony Volpe, I mean, he's a guy who can field the ball.
Yeah, he's had a great start, right? I mean, like obviously the bat hasn't come, quite as on red hot as it was in spring training when he won the job, but the defense has pretty much been there. There's been like one or two plays where he's kind of been in between on some stuff, and he said after the game like I should have had that one, but his defense has been there. The bat seems to be coming around a little bit. He's still got pretty good at bats on the most part. He's drawing his walks, and then when he gets on bases, he's 7 for 7 on stolen bases. So I think he can be a huge weapon there for him. For the team.
He's unreal. He is unreal. Like everything that we ever wanted. I know Oswald Peraza was an option. Fill in the blank. How many games will Peraza start for the Yankees this year?
Good question. Say 30. I think he could come up. He's up right now. I think he's probably going to go back down once Donaldson's back from the IL on Wednesday. It sounds like, but he's a guy that could come up later in the season. Injuries are inevitable, like we were talking about. So you figure at some point they're going to need him again, whether it's at shortstop, at second base. They've talked about potentially getting in some time at third base in the minors, which he hasn't played a ton of, just to kind of increase that versatility. So 30 might be pushing it a little bit if everything goes well, but at some point you figure there's going to be some injury where it makes sense for him to come up and get another crack at it.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially the way that they're cautious with everything. What is the like, how many times can you go up and down? Is there a certain amount?
Yeah. So the new rules, I think, are 5. You can be optioned 5 times per season.
Oh, per season.
But the one before the start of the season, I don't think counts against that 5. So that's new as of last year. I think it was the 5 options.
All right, cool. Yeah. And I had the number pegged to 27, so you're right there. Obviously, All right, Luis Severino will have blank starts in 2023.
See, so he's already missed. He's gonna miss 20.
Wow,
maybe 20. That might be more on the optimistic side. Obviously, if he's able to come back here in a few weeks, and then stay healthy the rest of the year, we'll probably put him around 20 maybe. It's a big year for him, right? Because contract year is the last year until he becomes a free agent. So, they were really encouraged by how he came into camp and all that. And obviously that hasn't turned out to be an indicator of what was to come. Almost made it through spring training without any injuries. But I think if he's able to get back here in the next few weeks and kind of stay on the field, I'd say 20 would be best case maybe.
Yeah, no, I would love to see him start 20 games. I have him pegged at like 11 or 12 just because of his history. And, I'm like, if he has another setback or two, just put the guy in the bullpen and just let him cook because the Yankees bullpen it's tough right now. It's so tough as a Yankees fan. We had Mariano and then you had Chapman, who was unbelievable for a good amount of time. And Andrew Miller and all these guys who were so good. And now you have a guy like Clay Holmes who doesn't find the strike, who is not locating in the last 30 innings. He's given up like 20 runs, something like that. So it's frustrating. And I think that if he does have a couple more setbacks and Rodon's good, it might be easy to make a switch to the bullpen. That's obviously like way forward thinking. That's like 3 months like down the road. So if he can get 20 starts this year, I'll thank my lucky stars. All right, last fill in the blank. The Yankees will have blank wins in 2023.
So I think in our season preview, I think I pegged him I think I had him at 93, which I probably would have had it a little bit higher going to the year, but then obviously the injuries to their rotation that they had in camp, I think I had him at 93. But if they can get Bader back here, so it sounds like he can go on a rehab assignment this week. And then like we talked about with Severino Rodon, if they get those guys back in the next few weeks, I think they're capable of that. Obviously the lineup's still pretty strong. You with Stanton out here for the next, it sounds like maybe 4 to 6 weeks with him. But they got some depth in the lineup there. So yeah, I think I had him at 93, so I'll stick to that one.
Yeah, that's perfect. I mean, Vegas had him at 94.5, so you're right on. And the club. And Franchi Cordero, if he can lift this team up a little bit more, would be great. All right, 2 more questions I have for you. I'm obsessed with this guy, the Martian, Jason Dominguez. Am I crazy for thinking that this guy, and I don't think he should necessarily be up this year, but I think with this new Chris Bryant rule that allows guys to come up, if you're top 3, the more incentivizes rookies to come up early. Can we see him next year? Like, is that even realistic? Because you've probably seen him up close. He looks like an action figure. He's unbelievably gifted offensively. Maybe the defense needs work, but I don't know. I really want to see the guy. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I think next year is definitely in play, especially the way he looked in big league spring training this past spring. Right? That was his first one, and I think he really made a strong impression. Like it seemed like every time he was getting into a game, he was doing something that stood out. So he spent, he starts this year in Double-A. He's still super young, and it's like he didn't get into, his 2020 was canceled by COVID, obviously, so he didn't start playing affiliated ball until 2021. Had like a tough first year, just kind of getting assimilated and used to everything here. Last year he made a ton of strides. He climbed a few levels, and they were really encouraged by how it seemed like he got better at each level. So I think that was encouraging to them, and then the way he played this spring, I think, caught a lot of people's eyes. So I don't know about this year. Like I guess potentially, depending how he does, like September is not totally out of the question. I guess you can't rule it out, but I think at some point next year would make sense if he kind of continues on the trajectory that he's on right now. He's got to get some at bats here. A good run at Double-A. Maybe he gets up to Triple-A by the end of this year, and then once you're at Triple-A, you're never too far away from getting that call.
Yeah, no, I needed to ask a question about him because I mean, he's just an enigma. People are calling him the Martian when he's 15 years old. He's hitting bottle caps 400 feet. I mean, I don't know. I think the kid, and that's the first. I've been giving away T-shirts. We do these T-shirt giveaways. That is going to be the first shirt that I actually sell. The Martian shirts are going to be hot off. They're going to be. I already got the lime green ones going. I'm really starting to see, I need a Martian shirt. Like that is something that just, as cool as Anthony Volpe is, the Martian is just something that will sell. It has to.
Yeah, it's got to be. Yeah, he's got the whole, I know he's got the glove with the Martian on it. So cool. It's all marketable. And so if he keeps playing like that, obviously I know I'm sure there'll be a lot of those Martian t-shirts going around.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Last question. You've been injected with Truth Serum. It's November 1st. Will the New York Yankees be in the World Series?
Great question. That's what everybody wants to know, right?
Yeah.
And it's like they keep on giving themselves chances by getting in and then going to face the Astros. It still seems like they got to get past, like one way or another, you would think that they got to get past the Astros to get to the World Series, right? Yeah, I mean, I think I had them losing in the ALCS again in our season preview, so I'll stick to that again.
That's fair.
But depending, I mean, you never know what they're going to do with the trade deadline this year, right? That always plays a factor. Sure. Obviously, it didn't really work out for them last season, and the Bader move was a strong one for them. Bader helped in the postseason, but obviously Frankie Montas wasn't around to help. So a lot of the trade deadline moves could swing it one way or another, but seems like they're kind of destined to run into the Astros again in the ALCS, and who knows what can happen if you keep on meeting them. It seems like one of these times they're going to get past them, but they just got to get a lineup that can kind of get past the Astros because they got some tough pitching, so it's never going to be easy.
It's fair. Only one person has said yes. I've asked the same question, and I've been told, "Oh, why don't you ask another question?" I'm like, no, going to keep on asking that question. I need to get the real answers from the people I think that know the most about the Yankees, and you are definitely one of those people.
Appreciate
Just
it.
keep on grinding.
Be fun to cover the journey, up to that stage at least to find out,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
That's the fun in figuring out what's gonna happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Been nothing but a pleasure. Great to see you, man.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah, just keep on grinding, and your success is going to be through the moon. I know it. Your articles are great, so keep on grinding, and nothing but the best.
I appreciate that. Thank you for having me on. It's great to catch up, and good to see you again.